I didn't want it. First period was kind of creepy. Second period was like, I really like the second one. I love the second one. It is. The first one is the period took forever. Like in his own house. But it's fine. There's concept like more action, more like really personality. He doesn't really know. I don't know what's going on. My family's more like the first.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you could bring your attention back at the screen, hopefully you were able to get to know your partner a little bit better. We are going to jump in, finish these notes. I'd really like you to have a good chunk of time to hopefully complete that first assignment. So let's review where we left off on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we developed the equation of a circle on the XY coordinate plane. Let me just read it of what we had. The radius squared is equal to quantity x minus h squared plus quantity y minus k squared. H and k represent the center of the circle. R represents the length of the radius. And x and y represent any outside points on the circle. So x and y can take on infinite values. Let's see how we would create an equation of a circle like number one. Number one says write the equation of a circle with center -2, 5 and radius 1. So the first thing we want to identify is the center is the HK in that equation. And then the radius is going to represent the value of R. Let's just write the equation of the circle. Again, research shows that the more that you write with your pencil, the better it's committed to your memory. So let's just write the equation of the circle. In fact, I'm going to flip it around because that's the way it's typically shown in textbooks. It would be quantity x minus h squared plus quantity y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Then to use that equation to answer this question, we would plug in the value of h, we would plug in the value of k, and we'd plug in the value of r. So h is the value -2, k is the value of 5, and r is the value of 1. And then I'll keep the other pieces of the equation. X minus -2 squared plus y minus 5 squared is going to equal the value of the radius squared. The last thing I do is clean it up with what I know about math. What happens when you minus a negative? Makes it positive. So our actual equation would be x plus 2 squared plus quantity y minus 5 squared is equal to 1 squared is just 1. So that would be our answer. I can't put in x and y because x and y represent infinite points, all the points that are on the outer rim of the circle. But any point that makes this equation true is a point on the outer rim. Okay, with that said, I'd like you to try another example. So I'm going to kind of create this one off the fly because this is where we left off yesterday. Write the equation of a circle with center 1, -3, and radius equal to 5. So on your own, basically you're going to mimic the steps we just did and see, can you write that equation? All right, turn to your partner and the person with the darkest hair color in the group. If you could share what you had as the answer. Olivia, I'm not talking to you because you're driving and I don't want to interrupt that. But I'll tell you what I have. Should be x minus 1 squared plus y plus 3 squared is equal to 25. All right, guys, go ahead and take a look. You should have quantity x minus 1 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 25. Give me a thumbs up if you got it. Yes. All right, let's move on. That's it. That's the answer. You've created the equation. Now can you go backwards? Can you be given an equation and identify the center? And let's go ahead and identify the radius. Also, I don't know why, but some notes people are having this number as 12. I originally had it as 12, but I changed it to 9 because it's easier to look at. So if you could change it to 9, change it to 9. I don't know why some were changed and some weren't. But if I'm trying to identify the center for the equation of a circle, the center is your HK. This is a circle. So I know that it's coming to me in the format of x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. Now there's nothing that's being subtracted from y. What number could I say is actually being subtracted from y? 0. So I could call this x minus 4 squared plus y minus 0 squared is equal to 9. That's the same thing, but it might help me identify the center better. So after we write this in this way, see if on your own you can identify h and k. Things to keep in mind, h is what's being subtracted from x, and k is what's being subtracted from y. No, she left. She's gone. She didn't like my circle. Oh, no. I hope she's okay. Interesting. I just got home. Oh, good. She'll zoom back in. All right. Let's see. For a road to excellence, raise your hand if you can tell me what is the center that you identified. Haley.
4 and 6.
Perfect. She took what was subtracted from x. Awesome. And then, guys, how would we find the radius? Take the square root. Awesome. So since this is given to us as r squared, we need to take the square root and we find the radius to be 3. Now let's use what we know about a circle to graph it. Go ahead and plot the center. So the center's at the point 4, 0. So I'm going to go 4, 0. There's my center. And a circle is all the points that in this case are 3 units away from 4, 0. So an easy way to graph this, just that's the definition of a circle. And we have the radius is all the points that are the same distance from the center. Yeah, that's the definition of a circle. And in this case, we know the radius is 3. So from the center, we'd go up 3. We'd go right 3. We'd go left 3. And we go down 3. And this gives us a frame. And then if you're on OneNote, you can just do ink to shape and connect those points in a circle. And OneNote should clean it up for you in a somewhat equal fashion.
Yeah, the fact that it's like not quite.
It's annoying me, I know, but I don't know if I can really get it better because OneNote always ships it a little bit. What can you do?
Select circle.
And then put it in the right direction?
So like hold down that like first button. And then circle
Wait, what?
it. So like.
Oh my.
Maybe if I start at the center. Oh, wait. Let's try it again.
The circle on the side and then select it, like lasso it and then do it.
Yeah.
Oh, but you'd have to make it exactly 3 units.
No, don't do it like that.
Just make a circle.
Don't do it like that.
You guys are confusing me. Ink to shape. Make a circle and then what? Oh, that's good. I did it. Okay. All right. That's it. That's the equation of circles. More characteristics of graphs that I think you guys probably already know. Do you know how to determine if a point is a solution to an equation? What would you do? Plug it in. See, does it work? So this is my x, this is my y, and I would see, does it make the equation true? So I'd plug in 0 and I'd plug in 1. And I'm asking, does 0 squared plus 1 squared come out to equal the value of the equation, which is 1? Does it work? Yes, so it is a solution. The other characteristic we're going to be looking at is how do you find x and y intercepts? And let me quickly remind you of what an x-intercept and y-intercept is. If you have a graph, so I have an x and a y-axis, and let's say that I'm graphing a line. As long as the line crosses the x and the y-axis, you would have an x and a y-intercept. The x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. If you were trying to identify that point, you would have some number for x. So I'll just go ahead and call it a. But then what would your y value be of that point? My computer froze on me. But what's the y value of the x-intercept?
I see it like,
Well, let's say,
like the wire or something.
OneNote tends to like glitch on me a lot when I start using those features, like ink to shape and like and there's my son's.
The ruler.
I've used the ruler today and it glitches when I use any, like, don't use any special features, then I can't work. There we go. Okay, so your x-intercept, if you were trying to identify that point, the x value could be whatever number that lines up with, but the y point would have to be 0. Because if you're moving to this point, you don't go up and you don't go down anywhere. So for any x-intercept, the y coordinate is always 0. Similarly, for any y-intercept, you don't move in the x direction when you're starting from the origin and plotting that point. You don't move in the x direction any distance, so our x value would be 0, and then y takes on whatever number lines up for the equation. So the key is for a y-intercept, the x coordinate must be also 0. So let's use that information to solve for number 1 and 2. Find the x-intercept and the y-intercept for the following. So number 1, if I'm finding the x-intercept, I know the x-intercept is where the y is equal to 0. So I would plug in y as 0, and I'm going to solve for x. So if I'm trying to solve for x, this is a quadratic. You guys hopefully know at this point, hopefully you'll know by the final, how do we solve a quadratic? Factor or quadratic formula, whichever you feel more comfortable with, but I think this one is factorable. The last term's positive, so should I have the same or different signs? Same as the negative. And I would have x times x would give me x squared. Shh, gentlemen, up here. What times what would give you 6? 2 times 3? And then where do I go to solve this?
You add 2.
So set them each equal to 0.
Yeah.
So I'd have x minus 2 is equal to 0. X minus 3 is equal to 0. And I'd solve. So I'd add 2, that x is equal to 2, and add 3, and I get x is equal to 3. Now, if I asked you to write these answers as a point, the x-intercept is always where y equals 0. So it would be 2, 0, and 3, 0. All right, some of us are really distracted. I get it, it's the end of the day, but if you have a distraction that's pulling away your attention, if you could put it away, this is one of the last lessons we look at, and the better you can absorb it, the easier it will be to complete the homework, and as you review for the final and the quiz next week, the easier it will be. Okay, so there's our x-intercepts, 2, 0, and 3, 0. Katie. Okay, let me take you to a visual component of it, which I think might make more sense. From Tuesday, what type of graph would this make?
Parabola.
The parabola, right? Because it's y equals x squared. So if I'm thinking about graphing this, right now I found the x-intercept. So I found where this parabola will cross the x-axis. I found it when y equals 0. So it's at 2 and it's at 3. Now let me go ahead and find the y-intercept. And then I'm going to show you how it makes sense in the context of this situation. So if I'm finding the y-intercept, what would I have to let x equal? 0. So I'm going to take this equation and I would have y is equal to 0 squared minus 5 times 0 plus 6. 0 squared is 0, minus 5 times 0 is 0, so I'm going to get y to equal 6.
We actually have a question. Why
Yeah.
do you put 0 squared? Is this just because like that's what y is?
That's because I'm plugging it into the equation.
What is an x, 2 and 3?
Those are the x-intercepts. So when y equals 0, those would be the x-intercepts. But when x equals 0, this is going to be the y-intercept, 0, 6.
Okay.
Allison's in you up here. Okay, so if I graph this y-intercept, which is at 6, I can see for this function, this is where it crosses the y-axis, and this is where it crosses the x-axis. You guys told me it should be a parabola shape, so I can actually use this information and sketch the parabola. So what you did to find this point, and this point is used what you know about x-intercepts and y-intercepts. The x-intercept is always where y equals 0, so we let y equal 0. In fact, maybe this is the word that's tripping us up. To find the x-intercept, so to find it, you would let y equal 0 and solve. Katie, does that help seeing it visually? Yeah. Allison. We don't. That's why it's a sketch. If I wanted to know exactly, I would have to plug in the number in between 2 and 3. Really, I'd have to know the x-coordinate of the vertex, which we will learn next semester. But for right now, we're just using some characteristics to kind of combine it with what we already know. All right, guys, number 2. Actually, I'd like you guys to try this with your partner. This time, the person with the lighter hair color, you tell your partner what you would do to find the x-intercept for this equation. And then find the y-intercept as well. Olivia, are you back? Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Except I am a little confused. So which notes are we working on?
We're finishing up the ones from Tuesday, so it's 1.2.
Okay. Sorry, let me pull that up.
Oh, so what you just said, like,
Okay, I think
And then I'll just say this one because I know you're kind of coming back on.
yeah, I'm sorry.
To find the x-intercept of any equation, you let y equal 0 and solve for x. So
Okay.
you would have 0 in this case is equal to 2x minus 1. And then you would add 1, and you would get 1 is equal to 2x. Divide by 2, and you'd find that the x-intercept is 1/2.
Mhm.
If we listed it as a point, we would say it's the point 1/2, 0. So
Okay.
to find the y-intercept, what should we do?
You input 0
Yep.
where the x is.
So we would have y is equal to 2 times 0 minus 1. And so y equals -1. And so that would be our y-intercept, 0, -1. Perfect. All right, guys, if you got this correct, it should be 1/2 0 is your x-intercept and 0, -1 is your y-intercept. Any questions over finding x or y-intercepts of equations? Okay, after we've just studied some general characteristics of different types of equations, now we're going to focus on one type of equation, and this is the line. I'm hoping a lot of this is review for you, but if you guys could pull up those notes that you downloaded, 1.3, we're going to start reviewing hopefully some pieces that you already know about a line. The first important thing to recognize is that you know you have a linear function if you have these key features. Key feature, algebraically, you just have 2 variables. Usually it's y and x, but not always. And they're raised to the first power. Ready? Yep. Okay, another key feature of a linear equation is if you graph the infinite amount of solutions, you will have a graph that creates a line. Remember from Tuesday, a solution is any ordered pair that makes the equation true. So on Tuesday, we looked at how every equation can be graphed by just plotting an infinite amount of ordered pairs. And there will always be some curve that comes about if you have a function. So today we're going to focus on the linear function, and let's do a review question of what we did from Tuesday. On Tuesday, you were asked to graph the equation by plotting points. What would you have to do first for this example? Yeah, get y alone. And I would subtract 3x. That would give me 2y is equal to negative 3x plus 6. What would I do next? Divide everything by 2. And that would give me y is equal to negative 3/2 x plus 3. Then I know I've had questions about how do I know what to put in my table? On Tuesday, I told you choose -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. That typically works, but if you have a slope that has a fraction value, it's actually more helpful if you choose multiples of the denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that as a helpful hint. Hint, put x in that are multiples of the denominator. And what types of numbers would be multiples of 2? 4 would work. I could choose 2. I could choose 0. I could choose -2. But those are going to be helpful for these types of linear equations. Often you have a slope that's a fraction, so choose multiples of the denominator. So we'll go ahead and plug that in, and I have negative 3/2 times my x value, which is -2 plus 3. I'll put -2 over 1 because I know to multiply a fraction by a whole number, I need to do that, and then I can reduce. 2 goes into itself one time. What is -3 times -1? What's +3? What's 3 plus 3? 6. So I have the ordered pair -2, 6. It's all good. And so we go to -2, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you could finish plugging in more points on your own, since this is a review question, and then make sure to raise your hand if you have questions. All right, guys, you should have gotten points like 0, 3. You should have had a point like 2, 0. And a point like 4, -3. Yep. And if we plot those points, we would have -2, 6, 0, 3, 2, 0, and 4, -3. Now, some of you I saw used your understanding of slope-intercept form, which we will be looking at. But if you're asked to show the algebra in a table on next week's quiz, I would want to see that you know how to use that table. So do you know how to plug it in and get your output for y? Okay. Those of you who use slope-intercept form, you know a lot of probably what we are going to be learning today and tomorrow. There are characteristics of linear equations that can allow us to have more efficient ways to not only graph, but also to grab information from the equation. The first characteristic you need to know is every line has a slant to it, a slope. Slope is the ratio of rise to run, or you could say vertical change to horizontal change. Some of you might know it as this triangle y over triangle x. Do you know what the triangle represents? Change, awesome. Furthermore, if you're given 2 points on a line, like an x1, y1, and an x2, y2, change in math is often represented with subtraction. So the formula for slope would be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Do you guys remember seeing that formula before? Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's one that you will definitely want to commit to memory. You'll be using it a lot, not only in the first homework, but in the next second homework as well. So let's make sure we feel comfortable using it. Also, m is usually the variable we use to represent slope. So with that said, let's go ahead and try example 3. Our first point we'll call A, so we'll call that our x1, y1. Our second point we'll call B, so we'll call that our x2, y2. And I'm going to write that formula again because we do have to commit it to memory. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And let's pop those pieces in. So I'm going to use 7 minus 1 over 5 minus -2. What's 7 minus 1 come out to equal? 6. And what happens when you minus a negative? Good, becomes positive. So this would be 6 over 7. Now, if you're more of a visual learner, even if you're not, this is going to be helpful for when we graph. You could plot those points. So A would be at -2, 1. B is at the point 5, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you could actually calculate the ratio of rise to run. So if I'm starting from point A, I can see that I would have to rise really from the y coordinate of 1 to the y coordinate of 7. So I have to rise 6 units. And then I have to run from the x coordinate of 1 to the x coordinate, or sorry, the x coordinate of -2 to the x coordinate of 5. So run 7. And so I can see that my slope is going to equal. And do you guys remember that going up is a positive direction and to the right is a positive direction, but down is a negative direction and to the left is a negative direction? We'll be reviewing that as well, but you could have gone this way and said, hey, I'm just going to graph it. Caleb.
So if you want to get the answer and it's like, for example, say it's 4 over 2,
Mhm.
would you want to simplify it to 2?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, simplify to 2, or you could call it 2 over 1. But yeah, we always simplify when we can. Your question. All right, example 4. I've been talking a lot. If you could turn to your partner and let's do the person with the darker eye color in the group. If you could share what the slope is. Do you have brown
Yeah,
eyes?
I don't know what shade of brown. It's just brown.
Yeah, mine is too. Do you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, okay. So -2 is x1, and
Good.
then 7 is y1,
Awesome.
x2, -6, y2. So then you place it in -6 minus 7
Awesome.
over 8 minus 2.
minus -2, right?
Yes, -2, sorry.
Awesome.
Which then gets you -13 over, would it be 10?
Yeah, because you have to minus the negative, which creates the positive. Nice job. Well done. All right, guys, go ahead and check it. Shh. You should have -13 over 10. Any questions? Why is it that? So y2 would be -6, minus y1 is 7, and -6 minus 7 is -13. And then 8 minus -2 creates that positive. All right. 2 more, and then I'm gonna give you guys some time to work on the first assignment. Letter G, we'll consider that our first point. So we'll call that x1, y1. And letter H, we'll call our x2, y2. We plug this in, and we would have the slope is equal to 3 minus 3 over 4 minus 1. 3 minus 3 gives me 0. 4 minus 1 is 3. 0 divided by 3 simplifies to just 0. What type of line is this? Horizontal or vertical?
That's definitely, no, it's horizontal. Horizontal.
I like that answer, Haley. She says it's horizontal because you can't rise anywhere. So if you're going from one point to another, if you can't rise anywhere, you're going to go 0 and then you're going to run any amount. Or if you were more of a visual person, you could have technically graphed this. G is at 1, 3. G. H is at 4, 3. And you can see that a horizontal line is going through. So that's an important thing to be aware of. If you have a slope of 0, you know you have a horizontal line, which we'll be looking at after the first round of homework. Example 2, let's go ahead and find the slope. We'll call J our x1, y1. We'll call K our x2, y2. And M represents slope. Good question. Okay, so we'll have -1 minus 2 over 4 minus 4, which will give us -3 over 0. What is that? What do we call that? That's, we say undefined, but yeah, essentially. And yes, this would be a vertical line. And if you're using Haley's language, you could say you can rise any amount, but you can't run any. So any number divided by 0 is undefined. So a vertical line. What?
Did you just, the previous one, would you just call it horizontal?
If you had to write the equation of the horizontal line, you would say y equals the y coordinate.
No, like, I mean, like, this one's undefined,
Yes.
so is it just horizontal in the previous one?
No, the previous one, you were just asked to find slope, so you would just say slope equals 0.
Okay.
And for this one, you would just say slope is undefined.
When I was in 8th grade, I just remember talking about like the 0, doing 0.
0 slope is a horizontal line.
Yeah.
That's good. All right, guys. I'm going to give you like, I don't know, like 18 minutes to work on the first assignment. I'm going to start it with you so that hopefully you can